Good morning. We are back. Another live interview for you guys with some creative talent and somebody who has a new book that's on the shelf as we speak. It just came out this Wednesday. Welcome Jenny D. Fine to the show. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, this has been a lot of fun. We've gotten to talk to we're working our way through the entire creative team on the new image book, Getting It Together, which came out this Wednesday. Was that exciting?
It was so exciting. It was so exciting.
Yeah, and we obviously we've done the previous interviews. We had it on the shelf. It's done really well. People are
Wonderful.
trying it out, so that is a wonderful sign. I know you guys have put so much work into this.
Absolutely.
Book. We
very much
getting it together. But let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about you. What got you interested in art? When did you start?
I've been drawing since I was very small. My family always encouraged it, which is very cool, but I think it also kind of gave me a bit of social anxiety because I would be drawing instead of doing other things. But yeah, I've been into it forever. I pushed away from it a little bit when I went to college because, trying to find my own identity, and came back to it when I moved to LA in my late 20s. I got involved in the comedy scene and started really pursuing an art career then. I started doing comedy merch, posters, t-shirts, pins, stuff like that. And I actually met Cena through a friend that I knew through comedy.
Did you do comedy too?
I probably thought I could do it at the time. I didn't do comedy directly, but I was and am involved in a show called Picture This. It's still ongoing. Even through the pandemic, they're doing like online shows. But when it wasn't a pandemic, it was like great. Basically, they pair an animator with a comedian, and the animator and the comedian talk ahead of time. And then the comedian goes on stage, the animator sits in front of a tablet, and then there's a screen behind the comedian. And like we'll animate like, Photoshop, making stuff move around. So it's like very choppy, but it works.
It's got to be hard for the artist too, because even though you talked before, a lot of those guys who go up there's a lot of improv and changing of things. So you're going to have to be on point when that's happening.
Yes, it can be, but sometimes you match with someone where it just works perfectly. And also, I'm sure a lot of comedy fans feel this way. It's like a dream to be able to riff with a comedian, like with your favorite comedian, to just be able to keep going with them. So like sometimes you don't even focus on their jokes. They'll just start like interacting with your drawings and you'll interact with them, and it becomes like a whole other thing. So yeah, if you really hit that sweet spot, it can become just like a really special, unique performance. And I've been really fortunate to be a part of a lot of those.
Now, what's the name of that again so people can check it out?
It's called Picture This, but that's like a very common phrase online. So at least for Instagram, I believe it's Picture This Show.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if it's the same on Twitter, but they might have. I think they're having a show actually on Saturday.
Nice.
And lately, like they've been doing it for charity, but they have like amazing lineups. That's what also was cool about getting involved in comedy. I was part of. It was part of a show. I met all those people through Nerd Melt, which is a combination of Nerdist and Meltdown. So I interned at like Meltdown Comics. That was like my home base in LA.
Nice.
So that's where I did I think I did my second performance there. I mean, performance, I was backstage, but yeah.
but working with them. So yeah. How'd you start with Meltdown?
So funny thing, I'm actually in a viral dance video. I met a comedian. His name is Nathan Barnett, but he did a character called Keith Apicary, who was like a super nerdy video gamer. And he did a performance at Meltdown. I had just moved there and I was like, what is this place? Because it's a venue at the back of a comic book store. And like I looked at the lineup for all the comedians, and there are all these comedians that I had just been like following for years. And I was talking to interns, and I'm like, how do you get an internship here? This is amazing. And I think I was intimidated by it. So like I went home. When I first moved to LA, I was actually living in the South Bay area, but then I found an apartment. And because if you don't, like when you first move to a place, like you don't know the geography very well. It turned out I moved like right around the corner from it. So like a month later, I just like walked in and was like, hey. Yeah. And I actually briefly was doing a web comic about interning at Meltdown. I only did a few.
Is that still available online?
I don't think so. I actually have a webcomic that I stopped really doing actively in like 2012, 2013, but it's there a few of those comics are on there too, but it's very old. That's called Vignette. Well, actually it's the website is jfineoriginal.com. I was not very good at branding. So but yeah.
Okay, so
do
people can go check it out, but it is old artwork. They won't get exactly a feel of what you're doing right now.
No, but it's my sense of humor, and I do those comics like occasionally on my Instagram, so it's like the same tones. It's autobiographical and like a little bit snarky. A lot of observations about society. Like I said before, I thought I was being funny. I'm sure back then I did.
Right.
But I think it's cool. A lot of it is like because I've got a kooky family. I think a lot of people who get into comics and comedy also have a very interesting background, so I draw from a lot of that.
And it's nice that you said that they were extremely supportive of your art, which is not always. But I can also see where that would create some anxiety, because now you're like, wait, now they have expectations. Now,
I mean, what was great about Meltdown is they were just like, what do you want to do? Meltdown and Nerdmelt. It was always about people who just wanted to like get projects going. Like, so everyone was just chatting and like talking about like what they wanted to make, and they were making it happen even with no money. So never really like expectations. Always like, yeah, let's do it. You should totally do that. You should totally do that.
That's awesome. Now that's the perfect kind of environment that you want to be part of. So
Absolutely.
So you started the web comics, and that obviously is something that sparked more. Where did you go from there?
The webcomics I started actually when I was living in Chicago. I was working at a nonprofit office job. I'm not going to go into detail what it was, but it was just basic, like, dating, office humor, living in Chicago, just kind of observations, stuff like that. And then when I got to LA, I think when everyone goes to LA, they're like, I'm going to be, on TV now or something. So, I think everyone auditions for something, or like someone tells them that they're like, oh, you should be on TV, so I think I focused on that a little bit. And then I focused more.
You did some auditions?
Yeah, I did a horrible one. And then I was in a web series briefly. I think everyone, yeah, I think a lot of people who move to LA, they briefly change like their bio on Twitter where they're like producer, actor, blah, blah, blah. But all that's been erased. And yeah, I like being behind camera. I did a lot of, it was a lot of just like doing a lot of everything, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I did production design, I did prop design, which I still love doing, but it's hard because when you're working on a production, like you get really into the thing that you're making, and a lot of it gets cut. And it's not so much that it's like, oh, this is my baby, it's more like you spent so much work on this very important thing, and like you made sure you were on your game, and then like only a fraction of it gets used, and it can be very disheartening. On top of that, you have to like keep a lot of stuff. Like I know a lot of people who work in props and in production who they just have these like huge storage things that not for me.
So not for you. So then you found your way into art.
Yes.
And so from the webcomics, where did it go from there?
Oh, you asked me that question. I mean, honestly, it went underground for a while because I was doing other illustrations. And then I was doing my Instagram because I was doing freelance. So I was just posting a lot on Instagram, doing a lot of comedy posters. So that posting a lot of that on Instagram and getting my stuff all around. Yeah, but I was always like occasionally doing just mini webcomics here and there. A lot of it was like personal. I keep a sketchbook journal. I've been doing that since I was 16. So it was very much underground.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then how did you guys get hooked up with getting it together?
Sarah, our mutual friend Sarah Morisano, who I met her at a comedian's like birthday brunch. I believe she like spilled her water like all over our table, and I told her to kill herself. So really great, meet cute. But she happened to work at a cafe. Cena Grace often works out of cafes. Obviously not now, but like that's the thing that he does. And he was working at the place that she worked at a lot, and they bonded. And she ended up showing him my Instagram, and he started following me, and she told me about it. But what's funny is that I had actually bought his book at Meltdown, because I would get like, I would get all my recommendations from there. I just bought in the book, Not My Bag, and I'd read that. And so like, I had been going to drink and draws a lot. And so like, I knew a lot of people who worked in comics, but it was mostly like superhero stuff, which was still very exciting because a lot of these guys do like amazing, Dan Panosian and Dave Johnson, like those type of people. But I didn't meet a lot of like the more like indie comic people. So when Cena reached out to me on Instagram, or when he followed me, I was just like, what? And then he reached out to me. And that was just like, that was crazy because it was also cool because we both clearly drew inspiration from Craig Thompson. And so, yeah,
and
that was basically how it started.
And this book seems like it's clearly something that's up your alley, because you were doing things that were a slice of life, drawing from your own experiences, which is what Getting It Together is all about. So they pitched it to you, and were you on board immediately?
I was on board immediately, mainly because of Cena. I admired him so much. What was also cool was they were able to get funding so that I could be paid, industry wage, which was amazing because I don't know if a lot of people throughout the arts industry, throughout the country, throughout the world experience this. They probably have at least one or more times where people pitch stuff to you all the time about like, this is a book I want to write, all this stuff, and they'll say like, I don't have any money now, but we can split the profit or something like that. And it's just it's, I have to be extremely passionate about the project for like to be able to like to be willing to do that. It's just, you can't afford, like you need to pay rent. And it's, I mean, even people that I would have loved to work with, but I couldn't do that. So for them to be able to provide that, like they set up like the perfect situation for me to be able to work on it.
And that is great. I don't think a lot of people understand exactly how the comic industry works, especially with a lot of independent.
I can't say that I do either.
Well, this is a very big thing that you're talking about, because it's not like the independent companies are just giving you a bunch of money to put that book out. You guys are doing this in many cases. You're putting your lives on hold. You're putting all of this out there, and then you're hoping that the issues sell and that you can actually make some money back. So this is actually, for everyone who doesn't understand, this is actually a pretty big thing for the independent publishers. So that's great that they were able to do that for you. Yeah,
that was a huge deal. So I really couldn't say no. Plus, both of them were like so wonderful and nurturing and just very accommodating. The artist brain in general, a lot of art, you hear about the term like herding cats.
That it's true, huh? That's you.
It's very true. I think that's not true for a lot of comic book artists. The comic book artists that I know, that I've met in the past few years, and just in my life in general, they're the most like motivated people. Comic book artists and storyboard artists, they are the most hardcore like workers I have ever met. And
I think they're so I think I think they're passionate about it too. They love comics. I think that really comes across, and I think you kind of have to.
You have to learn how to do it.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask, how different is this? Because you had done some comics before on your webcomics, but you've predominantly been doing comedy stuff. How different was this to do an entire book of sequentials?
It was hard. I was used to, a lot of the freelance I was doing was a lot of one-offs. It was hard to do something that was like to get into something that was just one long narrative. It's hard, I think, to do any kind of project as an artist that's one long narrative. It's also hard to do something that is someone else's vision. Having said that, though, I feel like in this situation, it was the best possible situation. Cena, as you know, has like experience with like every aspect of comics in general. So I think even the way he wrote his scripts worked really well for me. And like, I could ask him questions, I could ask him advice about, how do I think this should look? And they also gave me a lot of freedom with, if you don't, like, if you want to add, you can pitch us, like, if you want to do, an extra panel or like combine them, or just let us know what you're thinking. And so I was able to do that a lot. And it's also good at the same time that I was given structure, because sometimes when people want to partner with you, like different people make comics different ways. Obviously, some people, like the artists, it's like being a storyboard artist in the way where you really just lay out the whole thing. You just get a script and you turn it into like visuals, and that can be very exhausting work. I'm fortunate that was not the situation this time.
Well, it's nice too that they were able to give you a little bit of freedom, because I mean, obviously there needs to be some structure, so you know what's going on, you know how the story flows. But at the same time, you know, if your artist has some input, it's extremely important to take that into account, because they're the ones who are putting it to paper.
Yeah, and they also, it's the fact that they approached me, and this is one of the first times this happened to me. At that time, they approached me because they wanted me to do my art as their story. So like, I didn't mention before, but I was drawing a lot of musicians. I was posting a lot of art of musicians, just like guitarists, like in really, you know, rock star poses, stuff like that. I think that's partially why Cena was interested in my work, because there's a lot of like splash page, a lot of performance shots throughout the series. I'm especially proud of. I think it's page 16. That's at least what it is if you don't include like all the other stuff that's probably coming before that. But page 16 is one of my favorite pages. It's the first. It's this. It's actually already been shared. It's this shot of. Let me read the text. It's Lauren and Annie, and they're in their practice space, and like Lauren's in a bad mood, and Annie's trying to talk to her, and she just says like, just look me in the eye, and just start. And she swears. Can I swear on here? Just look me in the eye and fucking keep up. And then there's a shot of them just like jamming, and it's the first one. I mean, looking back now, I feel like it was more tame than what I've done since, but at the time I was just like, fuck yeah, you know.
This is the page right here.
Yeah.
So if everybody who's got it in hand, take a peek and look at what she's talking about. So you had a great time drawing it. It's how many issues?
Right now it's 4. I think it might be 5. I don't quote me on that as I'm saying it live. Yeah, right. I finished 4 though, and we'll see how sales goes and see if they want to keep the series going. What's cool though is that Cena set up this extra thing that really like pushes the experience. He, I don't know if people know this about him. He's very immersed in like the music scene in LA and just in general. He does a lot of work for musicians, and he has a lot of musician friends. And so we are releasing music by the band in the comic book alongside the issues. So with each issue that's released, a song is released.
Okay.
It's by like this. The first one I think is a single by like Lauren, but it's really good.
Okay.
It's really good.
Well, good. The so this is moving along. I'm hoping that sales are doing good for you guys. Like I said, it's doing well here, which is awesome. So let's just talk a little more. What were your inspirations in comics? What kind of stuff did you like that inspired you to continue to draw and want to do them?
I wrote about this on my Instagram stories the other day, because I would do my own autobiographical comics just like as journal, just for myself. And then I read Craig Thompson's Blankets and was like, oh, you could just do it about yourself. And so that is one of my most destroyed books. Like it's just totally falling apart. Yeah, that was the first time. Like I also read comics as like a little kid. I always loved watching cartoons and TV in general. Like my dad and his brothers kept a lot, like they had a lot of comics, and I would just, when I was at my grandparents' house, I'd just read them all the time, all the super old Superman stuff. So like Craig Thompson is also someone who inspires me, because he's one of those people, I'm getting ahead of myself. He's one of those people that just gives you a lot to chew on. In like his splash pages are like, there's so much going on. And I'm going to say this out loud and it's going to get misinterpreted. I kind of find it similar to like Where's Waldo, those books. Okay. Because when I would look at Where's Waldo, I wouldn't just like look for him. I would like take the time to like look at every single thing going on. And Craig Thompson does that too. I actually discovered an author recently, Aaron Renier. He does these books called The Unsinkable Walker Bean. They're more like, yeah. He does the same kind of thing. He actually did one where he did a splash scene where there's a lot going on, and he even included Where's Waldo in there. I'm so sorry, Aaron, if I gave that away, but you'll have to find it. But yeah, just when there's a lot going on. So like doing crowd scenes were the most difficult, but like I did them and I was like diligent about it because like that's what I like to look for. So he's one of them. And then Alison Bechdel's Fun Home was also extremely impactful, just because, you know, kooky family, getting into like the emotional details, and also just drawing a lot from literature, and just the way that she was able to like weave it into each, like it was beautifully written. And it was also very inspiring because I believe I learned that it took her like 10 years or something to write it.
Wow.
And I think it ruined her relationship. Just so it's just, yeah, it's such an amazing experience. And also the fact that she, like me, took meticulous notes about her own life. In my experience, I just saved all my sketchbook journals. I have just a huge stacks of them, so I can go back to them. I went through it the other day. Some of it is just very excruciating because, like, you know, 16, 17, but
then yeah, you can see how far you've come and what you've learned and what you've done. No, that is absolutely fantastic. Now, after an experience like this on getting it together, would you consider doing more comics, something different, maybe something of your own?
I actually have one that I was working on like years and years and years ago. And I keep on coming back to it when I have time, but it's like kind of a darker thing. It's about like having an eating disorder, which is, it would be an interesting way to follow up on this. But I also like, I've been approached from other people to do other things. I have a friend of mine who's working on a project about the Holocaust, so also like lighter fare. But yeah, no, I would love to do more stuff. Now that I'm able to, you know, now that I'm able to like set a schedule for myself and figure out how quickly I need to do stuff. And a problem I have is being like too precious with like the pencils or with just like the initial like rough like thumbnails. If I can get like, now that I'm better at like just pushing through it and not being so precious with everything, I feel like I'd be able to do. I'd be happy to like move on to another thing.
Nice. Well, I'm glad it was a good experience. I'm glad this left a great taste in your mouth, and you want to. And of course, everybody getting it together is on the shelf right now. Came out this last Wednesday with issue number 1. There's 2 different covers from Image Comics, so please take a peek at it when you're at your shop. If the shop doesn't have it, oh, there we go. You can see it right there. If your shop does not have it, please ask them to order it. They can always do a reorder and get it in for you. But at the very least, take a peek at it on the shelf. See if it's something for you, and support some creators who love the project and who have worked very hard to get this out to you. Thank you very much, Jenny, for joining us. It was really nice to get to meet you, and I'm looking forward to the next issues. I just have one more question for you. We always end it this way. It's probably the most important question I've asked you today. No, it is the most important question I've asked you.
God.
Which do you prefer, traditional or soft serve ice cream?
Soft serve, the vanilla with chocolate.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're gonna the cake cone. Oh, okay. Oh no.
Oh, it's, you know, this is how we weed everybody out. But
oh no. What do I get?
No,
I get like poured on me.
Yes, yeah, exactly, like an Nickelodeon cartoon. Oh, I like that. We have to organize. We'll have somebody come to everybody's home before we do the interviews and set it up.
Just like, how did you get here?
Yeah. Well, thank you again for joining us. That was really nice to talk to you. The book was great, and I'm looking forward to more and to seeing more of what you guys have to offer. And of course, guys, follow her on Instagram, check out some of that stuff, and getting it together at your local comic shop. Have a great day, all.